Welcome to the video, guys. The EU's unmitigated disaster is continuing, it would seem, with the European Union's popularity in Italy waning fast as new polls come out suggesting a hefty majority of the country now don't believe being in the European Union is actually beneficial to them, much like what the people of this country thought. Though, if this poll was to be believed, it would be by a much bigger margin than the Brexit referendum here. And, let's be honest, could you really blame them? But it's not just the EU itself that is coming under fire, it is also Germany that seems to be receiving favourable financial treatment in comparison to every other nation. Now, as I'm sure surprises no one, the Express has picked up on this shit show with this article here. EU on the brink. France and Germany sent brutal Italian warning. Not the Europe we want. Italian nationalists have warned European Union chiefs of a growing resentment against the bloc about the way it has handled the financial crisis sparked by the coronavirus pandemic. Brussels bosses have already apologised to Italy for not responding quickly enough when the country found itself at the epicentre of outbreak in Europe. But many Italians still feel the country has been abandoned by its neighbours, which I have covered a couple of times and seems to be beyond question at this point. It's not just Italy though, it's pretty much every nation from the start of this complete shit show, with them only really picking it up in the last couple of weeks. Though, to be honest, the rows are going to continue because we are talking about astronomical amounts of money that these countries are going to have to pay back. And if the Ramonas got their way, guess what? We'd be paying it back with them. A recent survey found 67% of Italians believed being part of the Union was now a disadvantage for their country, up from 47% in November 2018. And Nationalist Party Brothers of Italy said the EU, and particularly France and Germany, should now consider its future without Italy as a member. Which would be music to our ears because, let me tell you, another large nation like Italy leaving the European Union would certainly seal its fate and resign it to the dustbin of history, because just look at how they're struggling to deal with us leaving as it is. Brothers of Italy MEP Pietro Fiocchi said, in recent days, the Dutch Prime Minister Mark Rutte reassured a truck driver by saying Italy will not receive any non-refundable monetary aid. Because, of course, they're still arguing about money and how this is all going to be paid back. The Netherlands behaves like other European nations that, while supporting fiscal dumping, prove uncompromising against the hypothesis of common European debt instruments to mitigate the impact of the profound economic crisis ahead. This is not the Europe we want. Just see how low the index of satisfaction of Italian citizens towards the European Union is at the moment, which, as we see a moment ago, 67% are not being very favourable to the EU. They only need to translate just over 50% of that in a referendum to get the independence that we won in 2016. And by the sounds of other EU countries, their position won't change, so more and more Italians could well move over to the stance of not liking the EU, and therefore pushing the parliamentarians over there to actually get them out of this diseased and dying bloc. This should force those who belong to it, especially Germany and France, to think, if it is true that Italy counts on Europe, would it be the same without our country, especially after Brexit? No, as I've said many times, another big nation leaves, or even a couple of smaller ones, the EU could well fold, and fairly quickly. There is a bitter split over the extent to which Euro area countries should be pursuing a more unified economic response to the crisis. Well, they've all unified their currency, so it would suggest they should be unifying the rest of it, or leaving as we would all want. This seems to me like a bunch of countries wanting their cake and eating it at the same time. Italy have now found out you don't have an equal share in this. because when the shit hits the fan in your country, you'll be left to your own devices and made to pay it back yourself. Though I'm pretty sure if Italy's economy fully crashed out, surely that would affect the euro and the rest of it. So you would think it would be in the other European nations' interest to help them. I could be wrong, I'm not an economist. Finance ministers meet tomorrow to try to thrash out a package of measures aimed at creating greater Europe-wide fiscal firepower. Italy is pushing for the euro area to be far more ambitious by selling bonds to help fund the massive economic rebuilding efforts that lie ahead. Brussels has set out a rescue fund called the European Stability Mechanism, which countries can use, but many Italians fear borrowing from the institution would come with tough conditions attached and would stigmatise the country, a bit like what happened to Greece. And even pro-EU politicians fear a backlash which could lead to calls to leave the bloc. Carlo Calenda, a former minister and Italian permanent representative to the EU, admitted experiencing a crisis of faith in the institution he has spent a lifetime fighting for. So, die-hard EU shitweasels there are starting to turn against them when they realise the EU serves itself, not the individual member nations or the people of that country. The people of Italy need to demand a referendum and get themselves out, in my opinion, though I'm probably a bit biased in that, as most of you will be also. Mr. Calenda, who leads the recently formed Liberal Action Party, said this is an existential threat. I am not sure if we are going to make it. You have to consider my party is one of the most pro-European parties in Italy, and I now have members writing to me saying, why do we want to stay in the EU? It is useless, which is something we have all been saying for I don't know how many years so far. Finally, some pro-European parties in Europe are actually picking up on it. I think this party might be essentially the Liberal Democrats of Italy, though they're not as pussy-whipped, obviously, as the Liberal Democrats. I'm sure you've all seen what they've been doing, trying to culturally appropriate the Muslim festival that's going on at the moment, in what is god-tier levels of cringe, almost on par with the NHS workers dancing around on TikTok. A massive, massive shift is happening in Italy. You have thousands of pro-Europeans moving to this position. So, the Ramonas out there in this country cannot sit here and say that this is just anti-EU people spouting this. This is actually the most pro-European party in Italy, or at least one of them, with thousands of their supporters saying they are changing their position. I would suggest the EU are in deep, deep shit. What do you guys think? You'll have to let me know down in the comments. We all know that Italy's facing its worst crisis there, we don't have to worry about that, but this is not going to be helped by the next story we're going to take a look at here, which headlines EU unity disintegrates, huge state aid row erupts between member states as Germany benefits. So this is going to make the Italians all the more happier, I'm sure, but this is also affecting a multitude of other nations, because Germany, it seems, is being heavily favoured with the EU bailouts. Germany has benefited from more than half the emergency state aid approved by the European Commission during the coronavirus pandemic. Berlin, the European Union's largest economy, has accounted for 52% of the total value of emergency coronavirus state aid handouts cleared by the bloc's Brussels-based executive. The Commission relaxed its normally strict state aid rules in March to allow the EU 27 governments to pump money into their ailing economies and companies damaged by the introduction of coronavirus lockdowns. Eurocrats have sanctioned more than 1.6 trillion worth of national schemes so far, which is, like I said, another reason why we need to get out of the EU now, because we don't want to be paying back any of that 1.6 trillion debt they have just taken on by splurging on their economies after locking down the countries. Do any of you want to be paying back that 1.6 trillion? I certainly don't. France and Italy share joint second place, each with 17% of the total allowed by the Commission. Brussels has signalled it will allow governments to continue to make similar investments until at least the end of the year. But some European capitals have complained about the amounts the cash-rich German government has been able to pump into its economy. They fear the vast sums have handed Berlin an unfair advantage in the bloc's single market, and the Commission's relaxed attitude could even cause permanent distortions. So they're worried that this situation, once it's over, is obviously going to give the German industries a big advantage. There is clearly a risk of a breakdown of the internal market in Europe, a senior Spanish government official told Reuters. Not all the countries of the internal market have access to this liquidity. Germany has deep pockets and can afford it. Which is just showing these people what we always knew: the European Union is not the equal playing field they claim it to be. Berlin has issued government-backed loans to sports giant Adidas, holiday operator TUI, and is in talks with national airline Lufthansa over a 7.8 billion rescue package. Carlo Amati of the Italian Flight Attendants Union, AMPAV, warned the state aid that some European countries are discussing with airlines risks distorting competition and creating benefits for some when the sector restarts. Which is exactly what I said a moment ago and is very likely to happen. Ryanair's chief executive Michael O'Leary has said he is preparing to challenge more than 26 billion handed over to rival airlines in the European courts. So you can see it all going on between the companies now. It's getting rather cutthroat about who's getting more money than who and who's not getting none at all. Not only are the Remainers salty that we're still leaving the European Union despite the coronavirus, but we also have many companies bitching at each other because someone's getting more money than the other person. All this money being thrown around by these governments is creating a free-for-all amongst these greedy bastards. It would be quite funny if it wasn't our money they're all trying to snatch up. EU officials have cast doubt on the Commission's ability to protect the single market for significant distortions. One source said, if you look at the scale of what Germany in particular, but also some others are doing, any notion of level playing field or single market integrity have gone out of the window. Because when it really comes down to it, Germany are just trying to look after themselves, as we see Italy do at the beginning. But Germany obviously have a bit more money than everyone else, so they have the advantage. But this does make you laugh when you consider that the EU are demanding a level playing field with the UK in relation to Brexit or us leaving and the Brexit deal. But Brussels has said absolutely nothing about the advantage that Germany is showing over the rest of the nations that are left in there. Obviously, if we were still in there, we are a massive nation, so we would probably be taking a big portion of the money. But that wouldn't necessarily be a good thing because then we're responsible for the debt and paying it back, which is not something we want. Let's just pay back our own debts. Let them pay back their debts as the collective that they want to remain as, or with the exception of the people of Italy, who it seems might well want out of the EU rather sharpish. But with all these arguments about aid, money, and the coronavirus response by the European Union, I would suggest that the EU being on the brink is getting closer and closer. I don't think they're quite on the brink yet, as you would see in some of these article headlines, but they're definitely getting closer to it, with every week a new argument about something financial in relation to this coronavirus. And given the way the Netherlands Prime Minister was speaking, it doesn't look like he is going to change his mind. Hopefully, the people of Europe will get a chance to have their say and join us as an independent nation. Now, before I go, I've started doing live streams and uploading gaming content on my second channel. If you would like to come and join me for a live stream to chat in real time, have an interest in gaming related content on YouTube, or just want to follow me over there because you are a legend, the link will be down in the video description below and as a pinned comment. I hope to see you all there. Now, as always, before I go, I want to thank our PayPal, Patreon, Subscribestar and YouTube members for supporting the channel, along with everyone who watches my videos. Remember to let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. Leave a like, subscribe with the notification bell and share this video as it helps the channel a lot. And I will see you all in the next one.
There is a pattern consistent throughout history of oppressed people turning on the oppressors, slaves against their owners, the peasantry against the feudal barons, colonies, Mr. Verhofstadt, against their empires. And that is why Britain is leaving. And it doesn't matter which language you use, we are going, and we are glad to be going. We're off.